The acetylene torch hissed like an angry serpent as Technical Sergeant Maya Rodriguez adjusted the flame to a perfect blue cone. Sparks cascaded around her like miniature fireworks in the dimly lit hangar at Nellis Air Force Base, each one telling a story of metal being transformed under her expert hands. At 28, Maya had been welding for over a decade, but tonight felt different. Tonight, she was working on something that would change everything she thought she knew about her military career. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The F-35 Lightning II fighter jet loomed above her like a sleeping giant, its stealth coating gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. Maya had been assigned to repair what appeared to be routine stress fractures in the aircraft's internal framework, but as her torch worked its way along the damaged metal, something wasn't adding up. The fractures were too precise, too deliberate. They formed patterns that no amount of normal flight stress could create. Maya paused, lifting her welding mask to examine her work more closely. Her dark eyes, inherited from her grandmother who had worked in the shipyards during World War II, scanned the metal with the intensity of someone who understood that details mattered. In welding, as in life, precision was everything. One weak joint could bring down an entire structure, and Maya had never allowed herself to create anything less than perfection. The hangar stretched around her like a cathedral of aviation, filled with the smell of jet fuel, hot metal, and the faint ozone scent that always lingered after electrical work. Other maintenance crews worked on different aircraft throughout the massive space, their voices echoing off the high ceiling as they called out part numbers and status updates. But Maya worked alone on the F-35, as she always did when handling classified modifications. She had earned this assignment through years of meticulous work and an almost supernatural ability to diagnose structural problems that other technicians missed. Her superiors trusted her completely, which was why she had top-secret clearance and access to the most sensitive aircraft in the Air Force inventory. That trust had never been misplaced, but tonight, that same attention to detail that made her invaluable was about to make her dangerous. As Maya resumed her welding, the torch revealed something that made her heart skip a beat. Hidden beneath layers of composite material and carefully concealed by previous repair work was a series of modifications that definitely weren't in any technical manual she had ever seen. Small devices, no larger than a smartphone, had been integrated into the aircraft's system so seamlessly that only someone with her level of expertise would notice them during routine maintenance. Maya shut off her torch and set it aside, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for her inspection light. The bright LED beam illuminated what appeared to be sophisticated electronic components that had been hardwired into the fighter's navigation and communication systems. These weren't standard equipment, and they definitely weren't authorized modifications. Someone had been altering America's most advanced fighter jets, and they had been doing it with the precision of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. If these devices were in one F-35, how many others had been modified? What were these components designed to do? And most importantly, who had authorized their installation? Maya's mind raced through the possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. These could be tracking devices, remote override systems, or even explosive charges designed to disable the aircraft during critical missions. Maya's grandmother had always told her that when you found something wrong, you had two choices. You could look the other way and hope someone else would handle it, or you could stand up and do what was right, even if it cost you everything. Tonight, Maya was about to learn which choice she would make. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Part 1. The discovery Maya's first instinct was to call her immediate supervisor, Master Sergeant Jake Williams. But something held her back. Williams had been the one to assign her to this particular aircraft, and he had specifically requested that she work alone on what he had described as routine structural repairs. At the time, she had assumed it was because of her reputation for quality work, but now she wondered if there had been another reason. Instead of calling Williams, Maya decided to document what she had found. Using her personal cell phone, she carefully photographed the unauthorized modifications from multiple angles, making sure to capture enough detail to prove what she had discovered. The images were damning evidence that someone had been compromising America's most advanced military technology, but they also put Maya in incredible danger. As she worked to photograph the evidence, Maya heard footsteps approaching across the hangar floor. The sound echoed off the concrete, growing closer with each step. Maya quickly pocketed her phone and picked up her welding torch, pretending to examine the repair work as Master Sergeant Williams rounded the nose of the aircraft. Williams was a 20-year veteran with the weathered face of someone who had spent his career working on military aircraft. His gray hair was regulation short, and his uniform was always immaculate. But tonight, there was something different about his demeanor. His usual friendly smile was replaced by a tense expression, and his eyes seemed to be studying Maya more carefully than usual. "How's the repair coming along, Rodriguez?" Williams asked, his voice carrying a note of casual interest that didn't quite match the intensity in his eyes. "Any problems with the structural damage?" Maya kept her voice steady, drawing on years of military training to maintain her composure. "Just finishing up the welding, Sergeant. Should be ready for inspection in about an hour." She gestured toward the area she had been working on, being careful not to indicate the location where she had discovered the unauthorized modifications. Williams stepped closer, his boots clicking against the hangar floor as he moved to examine Maya's work. For a moment, Maya was afraid he would notice the evidence she had uncovered, but his attention seemed focused on the legitimate repair work she had been assigned to complete. "Good work, as always," Williams said, but there was something in his tone that made Maya's skin crawl. "When you're finished here, I need you to work on another aircraft. Same type of structural repairs, same need for discretion." He handed her a work order for another F-35, this one scheduled for deployment to the Middle East within the week. Maya accepted the work order, her mind racing as she realized the implications. If Williams was assigning her to work on multiple aircraft with the same type of structural repairs, it meant that more F-35s had been compromised. The unauthorized modifications weren't isolated to a single aircraft. They were part of a systematic program to alter America's entire fleet of advanced fighters. "I'll get started on it as soon as I finish this one," Maya replied, forcing herself to sound enthusiastic about the assignment. Inside, she was screaming. How many aircraft had been compromised? How long had this been going on? And most importantly, how high up the chain of command did this conspiracy reach? After Williams left, Maya continued her legitimate repair work, while her mind processed what she had learned. The unauthorized modifications were sophisticated and expensive, the kind of technology that required significant resources and high-level authorization to acquire and install. This wasn't the work of a lone saboteur or a small group of conspirators. This was an operation that required the involvement of multiple people with access to classified technology and top-secret facilities. Maya finished her welding work and began the process of cleaning up her equipment, but her thoughts kept returning to the evidence hidden in her phone. She needed to report what she had found, but she also needed to be careful about who she trusted. If Williams was involved in the conspiracy, then other members of her chain of command might be compromised as well. As she packed her tools, Maya made a decision that would change the course of her life forever. Instead of reporting through normal channels, she would contact the Air Force Office of Special Investigations directly. OSI was responsible for investigating serious crimes within the Air Force, and they had the authority and resources to handle a conspiracy of this magnitude. But first, she needed to gather more evidence. The photographs she had taken were compelling, but they might not be enough to convince investigators that a major conspiracy was underway. She needed to document the modifications in additional aircraft and potentially identify other personnel who might be involved in the operation. Maya's hands were steady as she loaded her equipment cart, but her heart was pounding with the realization that she was about to become either a hero or a target. In the military, whistleblowers often faced retaliation, career destruction, and worse. But Maya also knew that if she remained silent, American pilots would be flying compromised aircraft into combat, potentially costing lives and compromising national security. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. "Mija, doing the right thing is never easy, but it's always necessary. When you see something wrong, you don't look away. You fix it, no matter what it costs you." The next morning, Maya reported for duty as usual, but everything felt different. The familiar sounds of the hangar seemed muted, and she found herself studying her colleagues with new suspicion. Any one of them could be involved in the conspiracy, and any conversation could be a trap designed to discover what she knew. Master Sergeant Williams approached her workstation with another assignment, this one for an F-35, that was scheduled for a training mission with NATO allies in Europe. "Special project, Rodriguez," he said, handing her a classified work order. "Same drill as last night. Work alone, maintain operational security, and complete the repairs within 12 hours. Maya accepted the assignment, knowing that it would give her the opportunity to document additional evidence of the unauthorized modifications. But she also realized that each aircraft she worked on was potentially being prepared for compromise during critical military operations. The training mission with NATO allies was particularly concerning, as any failure or sabotage during joint operations could undermine America's relationships with its closest allies. As she prepared her equipment for the new assignment, Maya noticed that she was being watched. Technical Sergeant Kevin Chen, a maintenance supervisor she had worked with for 3 years, seemed to be paying unusual attention to her activities. Chen was normally friendly and talkative, but today he was observing her from across the hangar with an intensity that made Maya uncomfortable. Maya began her work on the second F-35, following the same procedures she had used the night before. As expected, she found similar unauthorized modifications hidden within the aircraft systems. The devices were identical to those she had discovered in the first aircraft, confirming her suspicion that this was a systematic program rather than isolated incidents. She documented the evidence carefully, using her phone to photograph the modifications from multiple angles. But as she worked, she became increasingly aware that she was not alone in the hangar. Despite the normal background noise of maintenance activities, she could sense someone watching her, waiting for something. Maya's military training had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now her instincts were screaming that she was in danger. Someone knew what she had discovered, and they were monitoring her activities to determine how much she knew and what she planned to do about it. As she continued her legitimate repair work, Maya formulated a plan. She would complete the assignment as requested, but she would also gather as much evidence as possible before reporting her findings to OSI. She needed to be thorough and professional in her investigation, but she also needed to be careful not to alert the conspirators to her activities. The afternoon shift brought new challenges as more personnel arrived in the hangar. Maya found herself working surrounded by colleagues who might be innocent maintenance technicians or might be participants in a conspiracy to compromise America's most advanced military aircraft. The paranoia was exhausting, but Maya forced herself to maintain a professional demeanor while internally cataloging every interaction and observation. Technical Sergeant Chen approached her workstation during the lunch break, his usual friendly smile seeming forced and artificial. "Hey Rodriguez, how's the special project going? Williams said you were working on some complex structural repairs." Maya's response was carefully neutral. "Just routine maintenance, Chen. Nothing too exciting." She studied his face for any sign that he knew more than he was letting on, but Chen was either an excellent actor or genuinely unaware of the conspiracy. "Williams mentioned you might need some assistance with the next aircraft," Chen continued. "I could help you finish up faster if you want." The offer sent alarm bells ringing in Maya's head. The whole point of these assignments was supposed to be operational security and working alone. If Chen was offering to help, it could mean that the conspirators wanted to monitor her work more closely or prevent her from discovering additional evidence. "Thanks for the offer," Maya replied, "but I've got it handled. You know how it is with classified work. Better to keep the number of people involved to a minimum." Chen nodded, but Maya could see disappointment in his eyes. Whether that disappointment was genuine or an act was impossible to determine, but Maya made a mental note to include Chen in her report to OSI as a potential person of interest. As the day progressed, Maya became increasingly convinced that she was being monitored by multiple personnel. Conversations stopped when she approached, and she caught several people watching her with unusual interest. The atmosphere in the hangar felt charged with tension, as if everyone was waiting for something to happen. Maya completed her work on the second F-35 and prepared to submit her report through normal channels. But she also made copies of all her documentation and evidence for her planned report to OSI. She was walking a dangerous line between maintaining her cover and gathering the evidence needed to expose the conspiracy. That evening, as Maya prepared to leave the base, she made a decision that would escalate the situation beyond anything she had anticipated. Instead of going home, she drove to a secure location off base and used an encrypted communication app to contact the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. The initial conversation was brief and professional. Maya identified herself and provided her security clearance information, before explaining that she had discovered evidence of unauthorized modifications to military aircraft. The OSI agent on the other end of the call, Special Agent Lisa Park, listened carefully before asking Maya to provide a detailed written report within 24 hours. Technical Sergeant Rodriguez, Agent Park said, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to dealing with serious security matters, what you're describing could constitute a major threat to national security. I need you to understand that once you submit this report, there will be no going back. Are you prepared for the consequences of making these allegations? Maya thought about her grandmother, about the pilots who would be flying these compromised aircraft, and about her oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Yes, ma'am, I'm prepared. Good. Submit your report through the secure portal I'm sending to your phone. Include all photographic evidence and a complete timeline of your discoveries. And, Technical Sergeant Rodriguez, be very careful. If what you're telling me is accurate, you may be in significant danger. After ending the call, Maya sat in her car for several minutes, processing the magnitude of what she had just set in motion. By tomorrow, OSI would be investigating a conspiracy that potentially involved multiple members of her chain of command and compromised America's most advanced military technology. Her life would never be the same, but as she drove home through the Nevada desert, Maya felt a sense of peace that she hadn't experienced since discovering the unauthorized modifications. She had chosen to do the right thing. Regardless of the personal cost, her grandmother would have been proud. The next morning brought an unexpected development that confirmed Maya's worst fears about the scope of the conspiracy. As she reported for duty, she was met by Master Sergeant Williams and two men in civilian clothes who identified themselves as contractors working on classified aircraft modifications. Rodriguez, Williams said, his demeanor noticeably cooler than usual. These gentlemen need to discuss some technical specifications with you regarding the work you've been doing. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Conference Room 3, immediately. Maya's heart rate spiked as she realized that her activities had been discovered. The timing was too convenient to be coincidental. Less than 12 hours after contacting OSI, she was being summoned for a meeting with unknown contractors about her recent work assignments. As she followed Williams and the two civilians toward the conference room, Maya mentally prepared herself for what could be either an interrogation or worse. She had documented evidence of a conspiracy to compromise military aircraft, and now the conspirators knew that she had discovered their operation. The conference room was small and windowless, with white walls that seemed to close in as the door shut behind them. The two contractors introduced themselves as Michael Harrison and David Kim from a company called Advanced Aerospace Solutions. But something about their credentials seemed off to Maya's trained eye. Technical Sergeant Rodriguez, Harrison began, his voice carrying a subtle accent that Maya couldn't place. We understand you've been working on some special modifications to F-35 aircraft. We need to discuss the technical specifications of your work. Maya's training kicked in as she realized she was being probed for information about what she had discovered. These men weren't contractors. They were likely foreign intelligence operatives trying to determine how much she knew about the unauthorized modifications. I'm sorry, Maya replied, drawing on her military bearing to project confidence she didn't feel. But I'm not authorized to discuss classified work with contractors I haven't been properly introduced to through official channels. Kim leaned forward, his expression hardening. Technical Sergeant, we have proper authorization for this briefing. Your cooperation is not optional. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Maya realized that she was facing enemy agents who were willing to use intimidation or worse to protect their operation. But she also knew that OSI was already investigating her report, which meant that help might be on the way. Williams, who had remained silent during the exchange, finally spoke up. Rodriguez, these gentlemen have the highest level of clearance. Answer their questions. Maya looked at Williams, a man she had respected for years, and realized that he was actively participating in a conspiracy against his own country. The betrayal was devastating, but it also strengthened her resolve to expose the entire operation. Master Sergeant, Maya said, her voice steady despite the danger she was facing. I need to see proper authorization documentation before I can discuss any classified work. That's standard protocol, and you know it. Harrison and Kim exchanged glances, and Maya could see them calculating their next move. They needed to determine what she knew without revealing too much about their own operation. But Maya's refusal to cooperate was complicating their plans. The standoff was interrupted by a knock on the conference room door. Williams opened it to reveal Special Agent Lisa Park from OSI, accompanied by 2 Air Force Security Forces personnel. "Master Sergeant Williams, I need to speak with Technical Sergeant Rodriguez immediately," Agent Park said, her badge clearly visible as she entered the room. Official OSI business. The relief Maya felt was overwhelming, but she forced herself to maintain a professional demeanor as the situation rapidly escalated. Harrison and Kim were clearly caught off guard by OSI's arrival, and their reaction confirmed Maya's suspicion that they were not legitimate contractors. "Agent Park," Williams said, his voice tense. "These contractors have priority access to Technical Sergeant Rodriguez for a classified briefing." "I'm afraid the briefing will have to wait," Agent Park replied firmly. "Technical Sergeant Rodriguez is needed for an urgent security matter that takes precedence over contractor meetings." As Maya stood to leave with Agent Park, she caught a glimpse of pure hatred in Harrison's eyes. She had disrupted their operation and exposed their conspiracy, and they would not forgive her for it. But she had also potentially saved countless American lives by preventing compromised aircraft from being deployed in combat situations. The next several hours were a whirlwind of debriefings, evidence review, and coordination between multiple agencies. Maya's photographs and documentation provided OSI with concrete proof of the unauthorized modifications, but the investigation quickly revealed that the conspiracy was even more extensive than anyone had initially suspected. Agent Park briefed Maya on the preliminary findings as they sat in a secure conference room at OSI headquarters. "Technical Sergeant, your evidence has confirmed our worst fears about foreign intelligence penetration of critical military systems. The devices you discovered are sophisticated remote access tools that would allow enemy forces to disable or control F-35 aircraft during combat operations." Maya felt sick as she realized how close the conspiracy had come to success. "How many aircraft were compromised?" "We're still investigating, but initial assessments suggest that over 30 F-35s may have been modified with these devices." The implications for national security are staggering. The scope of the betrayal was almost incomprehensible. 30 compromised aircraft represented billions of dollars in military hardware and, more importantly, the lives of countless pilots who would have flown into combat in aircraft that could be disabled by enemy forces. "What about Williams and the others involved?" Maya asked. Agent Park's expression was grim. "Master Sergeant Williams has been arrested, along with several other Air Force personnel who were involved in the conspiracy. The 2 men who tried to interrogate you this morning have disappeared, but we're coordinating with other agencies to track them down." As the investigation continued, Maya learned that she had uncovered one of the most significant security breaches in Air Force history. The conspiracy involved foreign intelligence operatives, compromised American military personnel, and a systematic effort to sabotage America's most advanced fighter aircraft. But Maya also learned that her actions had prevented a potential catastrophe. Several of the compromised F-35s had been scheduled for deployment to combat zones within days of her discovery. If she had not noticed the unauthorized modifications during her welding work, American pilots would have flown into battle in aircraft that could be remotely disabled by enemy forces. The thought of what could have happened if she had remained silent haunted Maya, but it also reinforced her conviction that she had made the right choice. Her grandmother's lesson about standing up for what was right had guided her through the most dangerous situation of her life, and that guidance had potentially saved countless American lives. 3 days after her initial discovery, Maya found herself in another conference room, this time facing General Patricia Hawkins, the commanding general of Nellis Air Force Base. The general was a decorated combat veteran with 30 years of service, and her presence indicated the seriousness with which the Air Force was treating the conspiracy. "Technical Sergeant Rodriguez," General Hawkins began, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to making life-and-death decisions. "Your actions over the past week have prevented what could have been a catastrophic compromise of American military capabilities. The Air Force owes you a debt of gratitude." Maya stood at attention, unsure how to respond to praise for what she considered simply doing her duty. "Thank you, ma'am. I was just doing my job." General Hawkins smiled slightly. "Technical Sergeant, detecting unauthorized modifications during routine maintenance work, and having the courage to report them despite potential personal consequences goes far beyond just doing your job. You've demonstrated the kind of integrity and dedication that exemplifies the best of the Air Force. The general pulled out a folder and placed it on the table between them. I'm recommending you for promotion to Master Sergeant and assignment to a new position in aircraft security investigations. Your technical expertise and demonstrated integrity make you uniquely qualified to help prevent similar incidents in the future. Maya felt overwhelmed by the recognition, but she also understood the responsibility that came with it. The conspiracy she had uncovered was just one example of the threats facing American military technology, and there would undoubtedly be more attempts to compromise critical systems. I'm honored by the recommendation, ma'am, Maya replied, but I need you to know that I didn't do this for recognition or advancement. I did it because it was the right thing to do. I know, General Hawkins said, and that's exactly why you're the right person for this new assignment. The Air Force needs people who will do the right thing regardless of the personal cost. As Maya left the meeting, she reflected on how much her life had changed in just 1 week. She had gone from a maintenance technician working in anonymity to a key figure in exposing a major security breach. The transition was daunting, but she was ready for the challenge. That evening, Maya called her mother to share the news of her promotion and new assignment. She couldn't discuss the details of the investigation due to classification requirements, but she could tell her family that she was being recognized for exceptional service. Your grandmother would be so proud, her mother said, her voice thick with emotion. She always said you had the strength to stand up for what's right, even when it was difficult. Maya felt tears welling up in her eyes as she thought about her grandmother's influence on her life. The lessons about integrity, courage, and doing the right thing had guided her through the most challenging week of her military career. But Maya also knew that her work was far from over. The investigation into the F-35 conspiracy was ongoing, and there were likely other threats to American military technology that had not yet been discovered. Her new assignment would put her at the forefront of efforts to identify and neutralize those threats. As she prepared for bed that night, Maya looked at the welding equipment she had used to discover the unauthorized modifications. The simple torch that had revealed such a complex conspiracy would always remind her that sometimes the most important discoveries came from paying attention to details that others might overlook. The conspiracy had been vast and sophisticated, involving foreign intelligence operatives, compromised American personnel, and a systematic effort to sabotage critical military technology. But it had been defeated by a maintenance technician who noticed that something didn't look right and had the courage to investigate further. Maya's grandmother had been right. Doing the right thing was never easy, but it was always necessary. And sometimes, the right thing done by one person could prevent catastrophic consequences for many others. The welding torch that had started this journey now sat quietly in Maya's toolkit, waiting for the next time it would be needed to reveal the truth hidden beneath layers of deception and betrayal. Maya was ready for whatever that truth might be. Maya's new assignment began with a briefing that would have seemed like science fiction just weeks earlier. The secure conference room at Air Force Special Investigations Command was filled with agents, analysts, and military personnel from multiple branches of service, all focused on understanding the scope of what they were now calling Operation Steel Rain. Special Agent Park stood at the front of the room, pointing to a large display screen that showed a map of the world dotted with red markers. Each marker represented a military installation where similar unauthorized modifications had been discovered or suspected. The pattern was global and systematic, indicating a level of coordination that chilled everyone in the room. Ladies and gentlemen, Agent Park began. Thanks to Master Sergeant Rodriguez's discovery, we've uncovered what appears to be the largest foreign intelligence operation ever mounted against American military technology. The modifications she found in the F-35s are just the beginning. Maya sat in the front row, still adjusting to her new rank and the weight of responsibility that came with it. Her promotion had been expedited through special channels, a recognition of both her service and the critical nature of her new role. But the briefing was revealing threats that made her original discovery seem small by comparison. Agent Park clicked to the next slide, showing technical diagrams of the devices Maya had photographed. These are sophisticated remote access modules manufactured with components from at least 6 different countries. The level of miniaturization and integration suggests a budget in the hundreds of millions of dollars and access to cutting-edge technology that rivals our own capabilities. Major Thomas Chen, the Air Force liaison to the Joint Task Force, raised his hand. Agent Park, do we know who's behind this operation? We have strong evidence pointing to a consortium of foreign intelligence services, led by what appears to be a private military contractor called Meridian Defense Systems. The company officially provides cybersecurity consulting to various governments, but our investigation suggests they're actually coordinating a systematic effort to compromise American military technology. Maya studied the information on the screen, her mind racing through the implications. The conspiracy wasn't just about the F-35s. It was about creating vulnerabilities across the entire spectrum of American military capability. The welding work that had started this investigation was just one small piece of a massive puzzle. Colonel Rebecca Morrison, who had been assigned to lead the military response to the investigation, stepped forward. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, your technical expertise will be crucial to understanding how these modifications work and how we can detect them in other systems. Are you prepared for an expanded role in this investigation? Maya stood, feeling the eyes of everyone in the room upon her. 3 weeks ago, she had been working alone in a hangar, focused on welding repairs and maintaining aircraft. Now she was being asked to help lead a counterintelligence operation against sophisticated foreign adversaries. Yes, ma'am. I'm ready to do whatever is necessary to protect our aircraft and our people. Colonel Morrison nodded approvingly. Good. Your first assignment will be to work with our technical analysis team to reverse engineer the devices you discovered. We need to understand exactly what they're capable of and how they integrate with aircraft systems. The briefing continued for another 2 hours, covering intelligence assessments, operational security protocols, and coordination with allied nations who might also be targets of similar operations. Maya absorbed as much information as possible, but she was also acutely aware that she was now operating in a world far removed from her previous experience. After the briefing, Agent Park approached Maya privately. Master Sergeant, I want you to understand something important. The people behind this operation know who you are now. They know you discovered their modifications and that you're working with us to expose their activities. You may be in considerable personal danger. Maya had been expecting this conversation, but hearing it stated so directly was still sobering. What kind of precautions should I take? We're arranging protective detail for you and your family. Your mother and siblings will be relocated temporarily while we investigate the full scope of the threat. As for you, you'll be working from secure facilities with constant security presence. The idea of her family being in danger because of her actions was devastating, but Maya knew it was a necessary consequence of exposing the conspiracy. Her mother had always been proud of her military service, and Maya hoped she would understand why these sacrifices were necessary. The technical analysis laboratory was unlike anything Maya had ever seen. Located 3 levels below ground at a classified facility outside Las Vegas, the lab contained equipment worth millions of dollars and staffed by some of the most brilliant engineers and technicians in the world. Her job was to help them understand how the unauthorized modifications worked and how they might be detected in other aircraft. Dr. Sarah Kim, the lead engineer on the project, greeted Maya with enthusiasm tempered by professional urgency. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, we've been analyzing the devices you discovered, and frankly, we're impressed by both their sophistication and your ability to detect them during routine maintenance. Maya examined the workstation where one of the devices had been carefully disassembled for analysis. The components were incredibly small and complex, representing manufacturing capabilities that required significant resources and expertise. Dr. Kim, how long would it take to install these modifications in an aircraft? That's one of the most concerning aspects of this operation. With proper planning and access, these devices could be installed in less than 4 hours. They're designed to integrate seamlessly with existing systems, making them extremely difficult to detect without the kind of detailed inspection you performed. Maya studied the technical specifications displayed on multiple computer screens around the lab. The devices were capable of monitoring aircraft systems, recording flight data, and most alarmingly, receiving remote commands that could potentially disable critical systems during flight. The good news, Dr. Kim continued, is that your discovery allowed us to develop detection protocols before any of these aircraft were deployed in combat situations. The bad news is that our preliminary analysis suggests similar devices may have been installed in other types of military equipment. Over the following days, Maya worked closely with the technical team to understand every aspect of the unauthorized modifications. Her practical experience with aircraft systems proved invaluable in determining how the devices interfaced with existing equipment and what their capabilities might be in operational situations. But the investigation also revealed disturbing information about how the conspiracy had operated. The modifications required detailed knowledge of F-35 systems, access to classified technical manuals, and coordination with personnel who had legitimate reasons to work on the aircraft. This wasn't an external attack. It was infiltration at the highest levels of the military-industrial complex. Agent Park visited the lab regularly to brief Maya on other aspects of the investigation. We've identified at least 12 Air Force personnel who had access to the modified aircraft and may have been involved in installing the devices. Master Sergeant Williams was just one part of a much larger network. Maya felt sick thinking about the scope of the betrayal. These were people she had worked with, people she had trusted, people who had sworn the same oath to defend the Constitution that guided her own actions. How do we know who else might be compromised? Maya asked. That's where your continued involvement becomes critical. We need someone with your technical expertise and demonstrated integrity to help identify potential threats in other military installations. You'll be working undercover, using your maintenance credentials to access facilities and equipment while actually conducting counterintelligence operations. The proposal was both exciting and terrifying. Maya would essentially become a spy, using her skills as a maintenance technician to uncover foreign intelligence operations against American military technology. It was a role she had never imagined for herself, but one that seemed to be a natural extension of her discovery in the hangar. 3 weeks into her new assignment, Maya received her first undercover mission. She would be temporarily assigned to MacDill Air Force Base in Florida, officially to conduct inspections on C-130 transport aircraft, but actually to investigate suspected unauthorized modifications similar to those she had found in the F-35s. The cover story was perfect. Maya's reputation as a meticulous maintenance technician made her assignment to conduct detailed inspections completely believable. No one would suspect that she was actually looking for evidence of foreign intelligence operations. MacDill was a sprawling installation that served as headquarters for U.S. Central Command and Special Operations Command. The base was home to some of the most sensitive military operations in the world, making it a prime target for foreign intelligence services seeking to compromise American capabilities. Maya reported to Chief Master Sergeant Patricia Davis, who briefed her on the inspection schedule and provided access to the aircraft she would be examining. Davis was a veteran with 25 years of service, and her demeanor suggested she took security very seriously. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, these inspections are critical to maintaining operational readiness. I want you to be thorough and report any anomalies, no matter how minor they might seem. Maya appreciated Davis's emphasis on thoroughness, as it would provide perfect cover for the detailed examinations she needed to conduct. Yes, Chief. I'll document everything and provide comprehensive reports on all findings. The C-130 aircraft at MacDill were used for a variety of missions, including special operations insertions, humanitarian relief, and cargo transport to forward operating bases around the world. If these aircraft had been compromised, the implications for ongoing military operations would be catastrophic. Maya began her work on the first aircraft, a C-130J, that was scheduled for deployment to Africa within the month. As she conducted her inspection, she used the technique she had developed during her investigation of the F-35s, looking for any signs of unauthorized modifications or suspicious components. The work was methodical and time-consuming, requiring her to examine every system and component that could potentially house foreign surveillance or control devices. But Maya's experience had taught her that the most dangerous threats were often hidden in the most mundane locations. On the second day of her inspection, Maya found what she was looking for. Hidden within the aircraft's communication systems were devices almost identical to those she had discovered in the F-35s. The modifications were professionally installed and seamlessly integrated, suggesting that whoever had performed the work had legitimate access to the aircraft and detailed knowledge of its systems. Maya documented the unauthorized modifications carefully, using techniques she had learned during her training with the technical analysis team. But she also realized that she needed to be extremely careful about how she reported her findings. If there were conspirators at MacDill, they would be monitoring for any signs that their operation had been discovered. Instead of reporting through normal channels, Maya used the secure communication protocols she had been given by Agent Park. The encrypted message would go directly to the Joint Task Force investigating Operation Steel Rain, bypassing potentially compromised personnel at the base level. The response was immediate and concerning. Agent Park's reply indicated that similar discoveries had been made at 3 other installations in the past week, confirming that the conspiracy was still active and expanding, despite the arrests that had followed Maya's original discovery. Maya continued her inspections at MacDill, finding evidence of unauthorized modifications in 2 additional C-130 aircraft. The pattern was consistent with what she had found at Nellis, suggesting that the same organization was responsible for both operations. But Maya also noticed something else during her time at MacDill. Several personnel seemed to be paying unusual attention to her work, and she caught glimpses of conversations that stopped abruptly when she approached. The paranoia was familiar from her experience at Nellis, but it was also confirmation that her cover might be compromised. On her 4th day at MacDill, Maya's suspicions were confirmed in the most direct way possible. As she worked alone in a hangar late in the evening, completing her inspection of the final aircraft on her list, she heard footsteps approaching across the concrete floor. Maya looked up to see 2 men in Air Force uniforms walking toward her workstation. She didn't recognize either of them, but their bearing and the purposeful way they approached suggested this wasn't a casual encounter. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, the taller of the 2 men, said, "We need to talk." Maya set down her inspection equipment and straightened to face them, drawing on her military training to project confidence despite the danger she sensed in the situation. "I'm Senior Airman Jackson from Base Security, and this is Technical Sergeant Miller from Communications. We have some questions about your work here." The introduction seemed routine, but Maya noticed several things that raised alarm bells. Jackson's uniform bore the insignia of Senior Airman, but his bearing and age suggested much more experience than that rank would indicate. Miller avoided making eye contact and seemed nervous, as if he was uncomfortable with whatever they were planning to do. "What kind of questions?" Maya asked, positioning herself so that she had multiple escape routes if the situation escalated. Jackson stepped closer, his hand resting casually on his sidearm. "We understand you've been conducting very thorough inspections of our aircraft. Some of the maintenance staff have commented on how detailed your work has been, almost like you're looking for something specific." Maya's heart rate spiked, but she forced herself to maintain a professional demeanor. "I always conduct thorough inspections. That's why I was assigned to this duty." Miller finally spoke up, his voice trembling slightly. "Master Sergeant, we know what you found at Nellis. We know you're not really here to conduct routine inspections." The admission confirmed Maya's worst fears. Her cover had been blown, and she was now facing potentially hostile personnel who knew about her role in exposing the conspiracy. But the admission also told her something important. These men were connected to the operation she was investigating. "I'm not sure what you're talking about," Maya replied, hoping to draw out more information about what they knew and who they were working for. Jackson's expression hardened. "Don't play games with us, Rodriguez. We know you discovered the modifications in the F-35s, and we know you're here looking for similar devices. The question is, what are you planning to do about what you found here?" Maya realized that she had 2 choices. She could try to maintain her cover and hope that help would arrive, or she could confront these men directly and try to gather intelligence about their operation. Given that they already knew who she was and why she was there, maintaining the pretense seemed pointless. "What I'm planning to do," Maya said, her voice steady despite the danger, "is the same thing I did at Nellis. I'm going to report what I've found and make sure that whoever is responsible for compromising American military aircraft is held accountable." Jackson and Miller exchanged glances, and Maya could see them calculating their next move. They were clearly operating under instructions from someone else, but they seemed uncertain about how to proceed now that their cover was blown. "Master Sergeant," Miller said, his voice pleading, "you don't understand what you're interfering with. This isn't what you think it is." Maya studied Miller's face, recognizing the expression of someone who was in over their head and regretting their involvement in something dangerous. "Then explain it to me. Help me understand why American military personnel would cooperate in compromising their own equipment." Jackson cut off Miller before he could respond. "That's enough. Rodriguez, you're coming with us." There are people who want to talk to you about your recent activities. Maya knew that going anywhere with these men would put her in extreme danger, but she also realized that she might not have a choice. The hangar was isolated, and there was no immediate help available. She would have to rely on her training and hope that the security protocols put in place by the task force would eventually lead to her rescue. "Where are we going?" Maya asked, trying to buy time while she assessed her options. "Somewhere private where we can have a proper conversation," Jackson replied. "Move." As Maya gathered her equipment, she activated the emergency beacon hidden in her toolkit. The device would send a silent alarm to the task force, alerting them that she was in distress and providing her location, but she knew it would take time for help to arrive, and she would have to survive whatever these men had planned until then. The three of them left the hangar together, with Jackson and Miller flanking Maya as they walked toward a vehicle parked in the shadows outside the building. Maya noted the license plate and vehicle description, hoping that information would be useful to investigators later. The drive was short, ending at a warehouse facility on the outskirts of the base. Maya recognized the location as a storage area for non-critical supplies, the kind of place where someone could conduct activities without attracting attention from base security. Inside the warehouse, Maya found herself facing a scene that confirmed her worst fears about the scope of the conspiracy. The space had been converted into a temporary command center, with communication equipment, computer workstations, and what appeared to be a sophisticated intelligence operation. 3 additional men were waiting in the warehouse, 2 in civilian clothes and 1 in an Air Force uniform that bore the insignia of a lieutenant colonel. Maya didn't recognize any of them, but their equipment and organization suggested they had significant resources and high-level access. The lieutenant colonel stepped forward, his bearing suggesting years of command experience. "Master Sergeant Rodriguez, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Harrison. I believe you've been looking for evidence of unauthorized aircraft modifications." Maya studied Harrison's face, trying to determine if he was friend or foe. His uniform and rank suggested he was a legitimate Air Force officer, but his presence in this makeshift command center indicated involvement in activities that were definitely not authorized. "Colonel, I'm conducting inspections as assigned by my chain of command. If you have questions about my work, they should be directed through proper channels." Harrison smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. "Master Sergeant, we're well beyond proper channels at this point. You've discovered something that threatens a very important operation, and we need to discuss how to proceed." Maya realized that she was facing the local leadership of the conspiracy she had been investigating. These weren't low-level conspirators like Williams. These were the people who had organized and coordinated the systematic compromise of American military aircraft. "What kind of operation?" Maya asked, hoping to gather intelligence that would be useful to the task force. One of the civilians, a man in his 50s, with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority, stepped forward. "An operation designed to prevent a war that would cost millions of lives, Master Sergeant. Sometimes preventing catastrophe requires actions that seem treasonous to people who don't understand the bigger picture." Maya had heard similar justifications from foreign agents before, but hearing them from someone who appeared to be an American was particularly disturbing. "And you think compromising our military aircraft prevents war?" "We think ensuring that American military forces can't launch unprovoked attacks against other nations prevents war," the civilian replied. "The modifications you discovered are designed to provide a check against American military aggression." Maya felt anger building inside her as she listened to this rationalization for treason. These people had convinced themselves that betraying their own country was somehow noble, that sabotaging American military capabilities was a form of peacekeeping. "So you're working for foreign intelligence services to compromise American military technology, and you think that makes you peacekeepers?" Lieutenant Colonel Harrison's expression hardened. "Master Sergeant, you're a maintenance technician. You don't have access to the intelligence briefings that inform decisions at this level. You don't understand the broader strategic picture." Maya drew herself up to her full height, channeling every bit of authority her rank and experience provided. "Colonel, I understand that you've betrayed your oath, you've compromised the safety of American service members, and you've provided foreign adversaries with the ability to disable our aircraft during combat operations. I don't need intelligence briefings to understand that those actions constitute treason." The confrontation was interrupted by the sound of vehicles approaching the warehouse. Through the windows, Maya could see the headlights of multiple cars converging on the building. The emergency beacon had worked. and the task force had tracked her location. Harrison and his associates realized immediately that their operation had been compromised. The civilian who had been defending their actions pulled out a weapon, while the others began destroying equipment and documents. "Master Sergeant," Harrison said, his voice now carrying the desperation of someone whose plans had unraveled, "you've made a serious mistake. You don't understand what you've interfered with." The warehouse doors burst open as Agent Park and a team of federal agents stormed into the building. The confrontation that followed was brief but intense, with the conspirators attempting to destroy evidence while the agents worked to secure the facility and arrest everyone involved. Maya found herself caught in the middle of the chaos, but she was also relieved to see that the security protocols had worked and that help had arrived before the situation could escalate further. Her emergency beacon had led the task force directly to the local command center of the conspiracy. In the aftermath of the raid, Maya learned that the warehouse had contained intelligence that would lead to arrests at multiple military installations around the world. The conspiracy was even larger than anyone had suspected, involving personnel from all branches of the military and extending into the defense contractor community. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison and his associates were arrested on charges of treason, espionage, and conspiracy against the United States. The evidence seized from the warehouse would provide prosecutors with everything they needed to ensure convictions and lengthy prison sentences. But Maya also learned that her work was far from over. The conspiracy had tentacles that reached into installations across the globe, and rooting out all the participants would require months or years of investigation. Her role in that investigation would be crucial, as her technical expertise and demonstrated ability to detect unauthorized modifications made her invaluable to the ongoing effort. As Maya was debriefed by Agent Park and other task force members, she reflected on how much her life had changed since that night in the hangar at Nellis. She had started as a maintenance technician, focused on welding repairs and aircraft maintenance. Now she was a key figure in the largest counterintelligence operation in Air Force history. The transformation had been challenging and dangerous, but Maya knew that it was also necessary. The conspiracy she had uncovered represented a fundamental threat to American national security, and stopping it required people who were willing to put their lives on the line to protect their country. Agent Park pulled Maya aside as the warehouse was being processed by the evidence team. "Master Sergeant, I want you to know that your actions tonight have potentially prevented a major intelligence disaster. The equipment we seized here shows that the conspirators were planning to activate the devices in aircraft scheduled for deployment to Eastern Europe next week." Maya felt a chill as she realized how close the conspiracy had come to achieving its goals. If she hadn't discovered the unauthorized modifications when she did, and if the task force hadn't been able to track down the local command structure, compromised aircraft would have been deployed in critical missions where enemy forces could have disabled them remotely. "Agent Park, how many more installations do we think are involved?" "Based on the intelligence we've gathered tonight, we're looking at potential operations at more than 20 military bases worldwide. Your work has just begun, Master Sergeant. We're going to need your expertise to help identify and neutralize threats at each of those locations." The scope of the task ahead was daunting, but Maya was ready for the challenge. Her grandmother's lessons about standing up for what was right had guided her through the discovery of the conspiracy, and those same lessons would sustain her through the long investigation that lay ahead. As she left the warehouse and returned to the secure facility where she would be debriefed and prepared for her next assignment, Maya thought about the aircraft she had inspected and the modifications she had found. Each unauthorized device represented not just a breach of security, but a betrayal of trust by people who had sworn to defend their country. But Maya had also learned that there were people throughout the military and intelligence community who took their oath seriously and were willing to fight to protect American interests. The task force investigating Operation Steel Rain was made up of dedicated professionals who understood that national security required constant vigilance against threats both foreign and domestic. The conspiracy was vast and sophisticated, involving foreign intelligence services, compromised American personnel, and a systematic effort to sabotage critical military technology. But it was being countered by people like Agent Park, Colonel Morrison, and Dr. Kim, who brought their expertise and integrity to the fight against those who would betray their country. Maya's role in that fight had evolved from accidental discovery to active participation, and she was prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. The welding torch that had started her journey had revealed not just unauthorized modifications, but also her own capacity for courage and leadership in the face of overwhelming odds. The investigation would continue for months or years, taking Maya to military installations around the world as she worked to identify and neutralize foreign intelligence operations against American military technology. But she was no longer the solitary maintenance technician working alone in a hangar. She was part of a team dedicated to protecting American lives and preserving national security. The conspiracy had underestimated the power of one person who was willing to stand up for what was right. Maya's discovery in the hangar at Nellis had set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately defeat one of the most sophisticated intelligence operations ever mounted against the United States. But Maya also knew that this victory was just one battle in a larger war. There would always be foreign adversaries seeking to compromise American military capabilities, and there would always be a need for people willing to detect and counter those threats. As she prepared for her next assignment, Maya carried with her the lessons learned from her grandmother, the skills developed through years of technical training, and the knowledge that doing the right thing, no matter how difficult or dangerous, was the foundation of true service to country. The secure briefing room at Peterson Space Force Base hummed with activity as Maya reviewed intelligence reports from 17 different military installations around the globe. 6 months had passed since the warehouse raid at MacDill, and the investigation into Operation Steel Rain had expanded into the largest counterintelligence operation in modern military history. Maya's expertise had taken her from bases in Germany to facilities in Japan, each assignment revealing new layers of the conspiracy that had threatened American military dominance. General Elizabeth Carter, the newly appointed director of the Joint Task Force, stood at the head of the conference table as teams of analysts presented their findings. The general was a legend in intelligence circles, having spent 30 years uncovering and defeating foreign operations against American interests. Her presence indicated just how seriously the Pentagon was taking the threat Maya had uncovered. "Ladies and gentlemen," General Carter began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had briefed presidents and prime ministers. "Master Sergeant Rodriguez's initial discovery has led us to the most comprehensive foreign intelligence penetration of American military systems in our nation's history. What we've learned over the past 6 months has fundamentally changed how we approach military security." Maya sat at the table surrounded by colonels, generals, and senior intelligence officials, still somewhat amazed that her welding work in a Nevada hangar had led to this moment. The investigation had revealed a conspiracy involving 43 military installations, over 200 compromised personnel, and foreign intelligence operations spanning 5 continents. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the lead analyst from the Defense Intelligence Agency, pulled up a comprehensive display showing the scope of the conspiracy. The organization behind Operation Steel Rain calls itself the International Peace Consortium, but it's actually a sophisticated network of foreign intelligence services coordinated by a private military company with connections to hostile nations. Maya studied the organizational chart displayed on the screen. The conspiracy was far more complex than anyone had initially imagined, involving not just foreign agents and compromised American personnel, but also defense contractors, academic institutions, and even some members of Congress who had been providing information about military programs. Agent Park, who had become Maya's primary handler during the investigation, addressed the room. "Master Sergeant Rodriguez has been instrumental in identifying and neutralizing threats at multiple installations. Her technical expertise and operational skills have made her our most effective asset in detecting unauthorized modifications to military equipment. Your mission will be to infiltrate the facility, access their computer networks, and download the intelligence we need to identify and arrest their remaining operatives." Maya studied the mission parameters, recognizing both the importance of the operation and the extreme risks involved. "What's my cover identity?" Agent Park handed Maya a thick folder containing her new documentation. "You'll be Jessica Martinez, a freelance cybersecurity consultant hired to conduct a security assessment of their computer systems. Your background in military technology and recent training in electronic surveillance make you uniquely qualified to access their networks without raising suspicion." The cover identity was solid, backed by months of preparation and documentation that would withstand scrutiny from experienced intelligence professionals. But Maya also understood that she would be walking into the heart of enemy territory, surrounded by people who would kill her without hesitation if they discovered her true identity. General Carter leaned forward, her expression serious. "Master Sergeant, I want you to understand the stakes involved in this mission. The intelligence we gather from this operation will determine whether we can completely neutralize the International Peace Consortium or whether they'll be able to reconstitute their activities and continue threatening American security. Maya nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility being placed on her shoulders. General, I'm ready. This conspiracy has threatened the lives of American service members and compromised our national security. Whatever it takes to stop them permanently, I'm prepared to do it. The final briefing session covered operational details, communication protocols, and contingency plans for various scenarios Maya might encounter during the mission. The planning was meticulous, but everyone understood that intelligence operations in hostile territory were inherently unpredictable and dangerous. 3 days later, Maya found herself on a commercial flight to Geneva, carrying credentials identifying her as Jessica Martinez, and equipment that would allow her to access and download data from the consortium's computer systems. The transformation from Air Force maintenance technician to undercover intelligence operative was complete, but Maya carried with her the same attention to detail and commitment to excellence that had made her an exceptional welder. Geneva was beautiful in the early autumn, with the Alps providing a stunning backdrop to the cosmopolitan city on the shores of Lake Geneva. Maya's hotel was located in the financial district, within walking distance of the building that housed the International Peace Consortium's headquarters. The location was perfect for a legitimate consulting firm, but it also provided excellent cover for intelligence operations. Maya spent her first day in Geneva conducting surveillance of the target building and familiarizing herself with the surrounding area. The consortium's offices occupied the top 3 floors of a modern glass tower, with retail businesses and other consulting firms filling the lower levels. The building's security was sophisticated, but not obviously military, consistent with a high-end corporate facility. On her second day, Maya reported to the consortium's offices for her scheduled security assessment. The receptionist was professional and courteous, directing Maya to a conference room where she would meet with the head of information technology. Everything about the operations screamed legitimacy, but Maya's trained eye noticed details that suggested a more complex organization. The IT director who greeted Maya introduced himself as Dr. Klaus Weber, a Swiss national with extensive experience in cybersecurity consulting. Weber was articulate and knowledgeable, but Maya detected subtle inconsistencies in his background story that suggested he might not be who he claimed to be. Ms. Martinez, Weber said as he led Maya through the offices, "We're particularly interested in your assessment of our internal network security. We handle sensitive consulting work for various government clients, and maintaining data integrity is crucial to our operations." Maya nodded, playing her role while mentally cataloging everything she observed about the facility's layout and security measures. "I understand completely, Dr. Weber. Government consulting requires the highest levels of data protection. I'll conduct a comprehensive assessment of your systems and provide recommendations for any improvements." The tour of the facility revealed exactly what Maya had expected to find. The upper floors contained typical corporate offices and meeting rooms, but Maya noticed that access to the lower levels was restricted by sophisticated security systems that went far beyond what a normal consulting firm would require. Weber provided Maya with a workstation and network access that would allow her to conduct her security assessment. But Maya also realized that her activities would be monitored closely, and she would need to be extremely careful about how she gathered the intelligence the task force needed. Over the next 3 days, Maya conducted her legitimate security assessment while simultaneously using specialized equipment to map the consortium's network topology and identify critical systems. The work required incredible precision, as any suspicious activity could expose her true identity and purpose. Maya's technical skills proved invaluable as she navigated the consortium's computer systems. Her background in military technology allowed her to recognize equipment and software that had clearly been designed for intelligence operations rather than corporate consulting. The deeper she penetrated their networks, the more evidence she found of the conspiracy's true scope and capabilities. On her 4th day at the consortium, Maya made a discovery that confirmed the task force's worst fears about the organization's objectives. Hidden within their computer systems was detailed intelligence about American military operations around the world, including classified information about troop deployments, equipment specifications, and operational plans. But Maya also found something even more disturbing: evidence that the consortium was planning what they called Operation Final Peace, a coordinated attack on American military facilities designed to permanently cripple America's ability to project military power globally. The operation was scheduled to begin within 2 weeks, during a period when American forces would be particularly vulnerable due to scheduled maintenance and personnel rotations. Maya realized that she had discovered the conspiracy's endgame, but she also understood that she was in extreme danger. The intelligence she had accessed was so sensitive that the consortium would certainly be monitoring access to it, and her activities would trigger security alerts that could expose her identity. Maya used her secure communication equipment to transmit the critical intelligence to the task force, but she also prepared for the possibility that her cover had been blown and that she would need to escape from Geneva immediately. The information about Operation Final Peace was too important to risk losing, even if it meant compromising her mission. Her fears were confirmed the next morning when Dr. Weber arrived at her workstation with 2 security personnel Maya hadn't seen before. Weber's demeanor had changed completely, and his friendly professional manner had been replaced by cold suspicion. "Ms. Martinez," Weber said, his accent now noticeably different from their previous conversations, "we need to discuss some anomalies in your network access patterns. Would you please come with us to a more private meeting room?" Maya knew that going with Weber and his associates would likely mean capture or death, but she also understood that refusing would immediately confirm their suspicions about her identity. She had to find a way to maintain her cover while preparing for whatever confrontation was about to occur. "Of course, Dr. Weber. I'd be happy to explain any questions you have about my security assessment procedures." The meeting room Weber led her to was located on the lower level of the building, in an area Maya hadn't been given access to during her initial tour. The space was clearly designed for interrogation rather than corporate meetings, with sound-dampening materials and security equipment that confirmed Maya's suspicions about the consortium's true nature. Weber took a seat across from Maya while the 2 security personnel positioned themselves by the door. "Ms. Martinez, our IT security systems have detected unauthorized access to classified databases. The access came from your workstation using your credentials." Maya maintained her professional demeanor while internally preparing for the confrontation she knew was coming. "Dr. Weber, I can assure you that all of my activities have been within the scope of the security assessment we discussed. If there are concerns about my methods, I'd be happy to provide documentation of my procedures." Weber pulled out a tablet and showed Maya detailed logs of her network activity. These logs show access to systems that weren't included in your security assessment authorization. They also showed data downloads that exceeded the scope of any legitimate security evaluation. Maya realized that the consortium's security systems were more sophisticated than the task force had anticipated. Her activities had been monitored in real time, and Weber had evidence of her unauthorized access to their classified systems. Maintaining her cover was no longer possible. "Dr. Weber," Maya said, abandoning her pretense, "I think we both know this conversation is about more than network security." Weber's expression hardened as he recognized that Maya had dropped her cover identity. "Indeed it is, Master Sergeant Rodriguez. We've known who you really are since before you arrived in Geneva." The revelation hit Maya like a physical blow. The consortium had known her true identity from the beginning, which meant her entire mission had been a trap designed to capture her and learn about the task force's investigation. But it also meant that the intelligence she had gathered was even more critical, as it might be the task force's only window into the conspiracy's final operations. Weber stood and began pacing around the room. "Master Sergeant, your discovery of our modifications in the F-35 aircraft has caused considerable disruption to our operations. We've lost valuable assets and had to accelerate our timeline significantly. But your arrival here also provides us with an opportunity to gather intelligence about American countermeasures." Maya remained seated, projecting calm while her mind raced through possible escape scenarios. The room had only one exit, which was blocked by the security personnel, but Maya's training had prepared her for exactly this type of situation. "What kind of opportunity?" Maya asked, hoping to gather additional intelligence while she planned her next move. "The opportunity to learn about American counterintelligence capabilities and to send a message about the consequences of interfering with our operations," Weber replied. "Your investigation has delayed our plans, but it hasn't stopped them. Operation Final Peace will proceed on schedule, and your capture will demonstrate that American intelligence services are not as capable as they believe. Maya felt anger building inside her as she listened to Weber's arrogant assessment of the situation. The consortium had underestimated American resolve and capabilities, and their overconfidence would be their downfall. But first, Maya had to survive this confrontation and find a way to escape with the critical intelligence she had gathered. Weber pulled out a secure phone and began speaking in a language Maya didn't recognize. The conversation was brief, but Weber's expression suggested he was receiving instructions from higher-level leadership within the consortium. After ending the call, Weber turned back to Maya with a cold smile. "Master Sergeant, you're going to help us test the effectiveness of our operational security. We're going to allow you to escape from this facility, and then we're going to monitor your activities to see how American intelligence responds to the information you've gathered." Maya realized that Weber was essentially turning her into an unwitting double agent. By allowing her to escape with intelligence about Operation Final Peace, the consortium would be able to monitor American countermeasures and potentially adjust their plans accordingly. But Weber's arrogance was also providing Maya with an opportunity to turn the situation to her advantage. "And if I refuse to cooperate?" Maya asked. Weber's smile disappeared. "Then you won't be leaving this facility alive. The choice is yours, Master Sergeant." Maya had faced similar situations before, and her training had taught her that sometimes the best strategy was to appear to cooperate while actually working to defeat your opponents. "Dr. Weber, I understand the situation. You're offering me a chance to live in exchange for serving as a conduit for intelligence you want the American government to receive." "Exactly. You'll return to your task force with urgent warnings about Operation Final Peace, and we'll monitor how they respond to determine whether our operational security has been compromised in other areas." Maya realized that Weber's plan contained a fatal flaw. He was assuming that American intelligence would respond predictably to the information she provided, but the task force had demonstrated sophisticated understanding of deception operations throughout their investigation of the conspiracy. "I accept your offer," Maya said, knowing that she needed to escape from the facility before she could warn the task force about the trap Weber was setting. Weber seemed satisfied with her agreement, but Maya could see calculation in his eyes as he prepared for the next phase of his operation. "Excellent. You'll be escorted back to your hotel, where you'll maintain your cover identity until your scheduled departure tomorrow. Any attempt to contact American intelligence services while you're in Geneva will result in immediate termination." Maya nodded, understanding the terms of her temporary freedom. But she also understood that Weber had made a critical mistake by revealing the existence of Operation Final Peace. The intelligence she had gathered was genuine, even if Weber intended to use her escape for his own purposes. The escort back to her hotel was professional but tense, with Weber's security personnel maintaining close surveillance while allowing Maya to maintain the appearance of normal activity. Maya used the time to mentally review everything she had learned about the consortium's operations and to plan her next moves once she was safely out of Switzerland. That evening, Maya sat in her hotel room reviewing the intelligence she had gathered and preparing for her departure the next morning. She couldn't risk contacting the task force directly from Geneva, but she had memorized critical details about Operation Final Peace that would allow American forces to counter the consortium's planned attacks. Maya's flight back to the United States was uneventful, but she remained alert for any signs that Weber's personnel were monitoring her activities. The consortium's willingness to let her escape suggested they were confident in their ability to track her movements and intercept any intelligence she might provide to American authorities. Upon landing at Dulles International Airport, Maya immediately implemented the emergency protocols she had been given for exactly this type of situation. Instead of contacting the task force directly, she used a series of coded communications to alert them that she had been compromised but had successfully gathered critical intelligence. The response was immediate and comprehensive. Maya was met at the airport by a security team that escorted her to a safe house where she could be debriefed without risk of surveillance by consortium operatives. The debriefing lasted 18 hours and covered every detail of her mission in Geneva. Agent Park listened intently as Maya described her discoveries about Operation Final Peace and Weber's attempt to use her as an unwitting intelligence asset. "Master Sergeant, the intelligence you've gathered confirms our worst fears about the consortium's capabilities and intentions. Operation Final Peace represents an existential threat to American military power." General Carter joined the debriefing via secure video conference from Precis Space Force Base. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, your mission has provided us with the intelligence we need to stop the consortium's final operation, but we also need to assume that they're monitoring our response and adjusting their plans accordingly. Maya understood the implications. Weber had allowed her to escape specifically so the consortium could observe American countermeasures and potentially neutralize them. The task force would need to develop a response that appeared to follow predictable patterns, while actually implementing strategies the consortium wouldn't anticipate. Dr. Walsh presented the latest analysis of the intelligence Maya had gathered. Operation Final Peace is scheduled to begin in 8 days, with coordinated attacks on American military installations in Europe, Asia, and the Pacific. The attacks will combine cyber warfare with physical sabotage, using the devices Master Sergeant Rodriguez originally discovered. Maya felt the weight of responsibility as she realized that her original discovery in the Nevada hangar had led to this moment. The conspiracy she had uncovered was preparing to launch its final assault on American military capabilities, and stopping them would require everything the task force had learned during months of investigation. General Carter addressed the room. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 8 days to prevent the most sophisticated attack on American military forces in our nation's history. Master Sergeant Rodriguez's intelligence gives us the advantage we need, but success will require flawless execution of a counter-operation that matches the complexity of the threat we're facing. The next week was a blur of activity as the task force coordinated with military commanders around the world to prepare defenses against Operation Final Peace. Maya's technical expertise was crucial in developing countermeasures for the physical devices the consortium had installed in military equipment, while her intelligence from Geneva guided strategic planning for the overall response. Maya found herself at the center of an operation involving thousands of military and intelligence personnel across multiple continents. The maintenance technician who had noticed suspicious modifications during routine welding work had become a key figure in defending American national security. On the day Operation Final Peace was scheduled to begin, Maya was stationed at the task force's command center at Precis Space Force Base, monitoring communications from military installations around the world. The consortium's attacks began precisely on schedule, but American forces were ready for them. The first phase of the consortium's operation involved cyber attacks designed to disable military communication systems. But the task force had used Maya's intelligence to identify and isolate the compromised networks, limiting the effectiveness of the digital assault. Instead of crippling American communications, the cyber attacks provided additional intelligence about the consortium's capabilities and methods. The second phase involved activating the physical devices that had been installed in military aircraft and other equipment. Maya watched as reports came in from installations around the world. But instead of successful sabotage, the reports described the capture of consortium operatives who had attempted to activate devices that had already been disabled by American technicians. Weber's confidence in his operational security had been his downfall. The consortium had assumed that American forces would respond predictably to Maya's intelligence, but the task force had used her information to set traps that captured dozens of consortium operatives and provided evidence of the full scope of their operations. By the end of the day, Operation Final Peace had been completely defeated. The consortium's network had been dismantled, their operatives were in custody, and their capability to threaten American military forces had been permanently eliminated. Maya's original discovery in the Nevada hangar had led to the exposure and destruction of the most sophisticated foreign intelligence operation in modern history. Agent Park approached Maya as the command center began to wind down its operations. Master Sergeant, I wanted to personally thank you for your service during this investigation. Your technical expertise, operational skills, and personal courage have been instrumental in protecting American national security. Maya felt a sense of completion as she realized that the conspiracy she had uncovered was finally defeated. But she also understood that her work in counterintelligence was just beginning. There would always be new threats to American military technology, and there would always be a need for people with her unique combination of skills and dedication. General Carter addressed the entire task force as the operation concluded. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have demonstrated that American military forces can adapt, overcome, and defeat even the most sophisticated threats to our national security. Master Sergeant Rodriguez's discovery 6 months ago has led to one of the most successful counterintelligence operations in our nation's history. Maya stood with her colleagues as General Carter continued her remarks, but her thoughts were focused on the future. The skills she had developed during the investigation would be essential for detecting and countering new threats to American military technology. Her experience had shown that the most dangerous enemies were often hidden in plain sight, requiring constant vigilance and attention to detail to identify and defeat. 3 weeks later, Maya found herself back in a hangar, but this time she was training other maintenance technicians to recognize the signs of unauthorized modifications to military equipment. The program she was developing would ensure that technical personnel throughout the military would have the knowledge and skills needed to detect foreign intelligence operations against American technology. The trainees listened intently as Maya explained the techniques she had used to identify the unauthorized modifications in the F-35 aircraft. But she also emphasized the importance of trusting their instincts and having the courage to report suspicious findings, even when doing so might be personally risky. The most important lesson I can teach you, Maya told the group, is that attention to detail can save lives. Every weld, every component, every system in these aircraft represents the safety and security of the people who depend on our work. When something doesn't look right, investigate it. When you find evidence of problems, report it. Your technical expertise and professional integrity are the first line of defense against threats to American military capability. Maya's grandmother would have been proud to see her granddaughter teaching others about the importance of standing up for what was right, even when it was difficult or dangerous. The lessons about integrity and courage that had guided Maya through her childhood had proven essential during the most challenging period of her military career. Colonel Morrison visited Maya's training facility to observe the program she had developed. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, the techniques you're teaching here will be implemented throughout the Air Force and potentially across all branches of the military. Your work will help ensure that no foreign intelligence operation can achieve the level of penetration we saw with the International Peace Consortium. Maya appreciated the recognition, but she remained focused on the practical aspects of her work. Training maintenance technicians to recognize and report threats was just one part of a comprehensive approach to protecting American military technology. There would always be new threats and new challenges requiring adaptation and innovation. 6 months after the defeat of Operation Final Peace, Maya received orders that would take her career in a new direction. She was being promoted to Senior Master Sergeant and assigned to lead a new organization within Air Force Special Investigations, focused specifically on detecting and countering foreign intelligence operations against military technology. The assignment was both an honor and a responsibility that reflected everything Maya had learned during her journey from maintenance technician to counterintelligence specialist. Her new organization would be responsible for protecting American military technology from the most sophisticated threats, using the lessons learned from the International Peace Consortium investigation. Maya's final act before taking up her new assignment was to visit Arlington National Cemetery, where she paid her respects at the grave of her grandmother. The woman who had taught her about integrity, courage, and doing what was right had passed away 5 years earlier, but her influence continued to guide Maya's decisions and actions. Standing at the grave site, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. A routine welding job in a Nevada hangar had revealed a conspiracy that threatened American national security. Her decision to investigate and report what she had found had led to one of the most successful counterintelligence operations in military history. But Maya also understood that her work was far from over. There would always be foreign adversaries seeking to compromise American military capabilities, and there would always be a need for people willing to stand guard against those threats. Her new assignment would put her at the center of that ongoing battle, and she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The welding torch that had started this journey still sat in Maya's toolkit, a reminder of where her path had begun and of the importance of paying attention to details that others might overlook. The precision and dedication she had brought to her metal work had proven essential in uncovering and defeating a sophisticated foreign intelligence operation. As Maya left the cemetery and prepared for her new assignment, she carried with her the lessons learned from her grandmother, the skills developed through years of technical training, and the knowledge that one person's courage and integrity could make a difference in protecting the freedom and security of an entire nation. The conspiracy that had started with unauthorized modifications to military aircraft had been completely defeated, but Maya's commitment to defending American interests would continue for as long as she wore the uniform. The maintenance technician who had noticed something wrong during routine welding work had become a guardian of American military technology, ready to face whatever threats the future might bring. Maya's story had become a legend within the Air Force, inspiring a new generation of maintenance technicians and security personnel to understand that their work was about more than just maintaining equipment. They were the guardians of American military capability, and their attention to detail and professional integrity were essential to national security. The transformation from welder to counterintelligence specialist was complete. But Maya understood that it was also just the beginning. There would always be new threats to detect, new conspiracies to uncover, and new challenges that would test her skills and dedication. But she was ready for all of them, armed with the knowledge that doing the right thing, no matter how difficult or dangerous, was the foundation of true service to country. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.